But absolutely, she'd be a fun fairy godmother. Absolutely, she'd be very, very ruthless fairy godmother. Mm-hmm. I'm Chris Colfer. I'm 23 years old, and most people know me from Glee. My first book is coming out here in the UK.
And can you tell us a little bit about the story?
Sure. Land Stories is about a pair of twins who inherit a magical book from their grandmother that transports them into the fairy tale world. And they have a bunch of adventures with the fairy tale characters that we all grew up reading about.
And where did the idea for the story come from? What made you want to sit down and...
Yeah, the idea came from my 7-year-old imagination. I came up with the story literally when I was 7, and I've always wanted to write it, and it's developed over time in my head, and so finally when I got an opportunity to do it, I did it.
And the twin characters, they're quite different, but they've got this kind of awesome dynamic going on. Who inspired the character?
The main characters, Alex and Connor, are pretty much me, as vain as that sounds, but Alex is kind of my bookworm, wise beyond her years side, and Connor is kind of my sarcastic, lazy boy side. And I'm a Gemini, so they kind of represent my bit of my split personality.
And for people who are fans of the first one, do you have any kind of hints about what we can expect from the second one?
Ooh, I think the second one the stakes are a lot higher this time, because they're older. The twins are older, and I think the last book was about a character who was really villainized. She kind of realized that she really wasn't trying to do bad. Bad things just kind of happened, and were blamed on her. The second one is very different because the villain is very fully aware that she is evil, and she does not care. She wants to be evil, and I think the scariest thing about the villain is that we all can relate to her.
And what was it about fantasy that made you decide that that was what you wanted to write about?
It's just fun. Fantasy is fun, I think you can write anything you want, and you there are no limits when you're writing fiction. Whereas with nonfiction, you have many limits if you're writing about somebody or something. But you can just explore, and you can just let your mind wander.
Are there any big fantasy books that you're a massive fan of that kind of inspired you a little bit?
Go to My Grave, loving Harry Potter,
Amazing.
And the Narnia books, and all the classics. Matilda, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, The Wizard of Oz, and I hopefully people will be able to see that a lot of my book was inspired by those.
And I read that you were actually lucky enough to meet J.K. Rowling as well.
I was, yes, I met J.K. Rowling years ago, long before I was an author, at the White House, strangely, and I was more excited to meet her than the president.
That must have been amazing.
It was amazing.
What was she like?
Beautiful. I just remember thinking how pretty she was. She was gorgeous.
Amazing. That's like a dream come true.
Yeah.
And how do you think Kurt, your character from Glee, would cope if he was transported into the land of stories?
He'd probably look for the closest mall, and I don't know. I mean, he probably, he gives Rachel so many pep talks. He'd probably find someone to give a pep talk to. He'd like find a little enchanted squirrel or something to boost up their morale. But I don't know. I don't know if he'd do very well. I don't know. He probably would give the fairy council a makeover. Yeah. I
could definitely see him being like the fairy godmother type. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he would care for children that much. I would still haven't figured that out. Like, sometimes I think maybe Kurt's a little afraid of kids.
And if you could have any of your castmates from Glee as your fairy godmother, who would you pick?
Oh, Jane Lynch, for sure.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think she kind of is in many ways. Yeah. But absolutely, she'd be a fun fairy godmother. Absolutely. She'd be very, very ruthless fairy godmother.
What would you get her to do for you?
Oh, kick ass. Yeah. That's what a good fairy godmother would do, I think.
Amazing. And if you could hang out with one fairy tale character for a day, who would you want to hang out with?
Ooh. Well, it's so strange because it's like I know the fairy tale characters as the world sees them, and I know them as I see them. So, I mean, I think hanging out with Goldilocks and the version of Goldilocks in my story would be awesome because she really is just a badass. Can I say badass? But she really is, like, she just, like, in the books and in the first one and especially the second one, like, she'll take on like dozens grown men soldiers herself, and she'll beat them all. And I love characters like that. So unexpectedly strong. So I think she'd be a riot.